Yeah, I kind of rebooted it. I don't know if that's all going to be in the same stream of things or not. It has to adjust to the lighting. It's probably going to have to do it again. But I want you to see this because to me it's important that people understand just because we're conservative doesn't make us racist. This is my granddaughter and her boyfriend playing in a pool. I don't know if you can see that. And then there's his little sister. I'm gonna get out here if I can outside the door without the lighting going crazy again like it did. Y'all gonna say hello to me? Huh?
Are you recording?
Yeah. Y'all having fun? She's so cute. She kills me. You're a cutie pie, you know that? Why are you saying she needs a shower? Huh? Boy, that pool looks good today. Apparently that cleaning it up the other day worked. A little bit of a mess in here. Exercise machine that never gets used by me because I got a bad back. We like our tall ceilings. Anyway, that right there was made by my ex's daddy. That's what you call folk art. Only instead of using string the way a lot of people did back in the day, he used copper. And so there it is, still there on felt. He carved the wood himself. He did it all. Himself. And I personally think that's pretty cool. That's just me. Anyway, I get on here, I want to tell somebody a little something about how conservatives are. Make people understand that just because you see that hunter and you might see some of his kills over the years mounted up and what have you. All that means is I spent a whole lot of time in the woods with my God. That's all it means. It means the most peaceful place in the world is being in the woods. It's being there watching the woods come alive. Hearing them turkeys flopping down off their roost. Then you get to make an Indian basket like that, out of them. But anyway, it's hearing them turkeys flapping down off the roost. And then trying to call one of them up so you can have a turkey dinner. It's being in the woods and having a hawk come down and pick up a mouse right between your feet when you're sitting up against a tree that you didn't even know was there. That's God's giving you that unbelievable experience that only He can do. It's sitting on the side of a riverbank, on the opposite side of the riverbank, and spending the whole afternoon watching the river otters playing with their slip and slide that they made out of nature, going down in the water and coming back up and doing it again, and just having fun. Just an animal having fun. And it's being out there in the woods and having that noise come up. Oh boy, I know what that is. That's not a squirrel. That's a deer, and he's walking right behind me. I can't move my head, because if I move my head, you'll see that movement. I gotta wait for him to come around in front of me where I can see him. And hopefully, if he's done everything right, he'll come around and he'll show himself. And you might end up with a chandelier full of horns like I've got there. A couple of deer in the background there. And you know, and you might end up with one that you actually shot while it was in velvet, because early in bow season, that's how it went down. Just one of them things. You might end up with a bunch of skull mounts, hogs that you killed. You might end up with little trophies around your room. You can't take them with you. You can't. All these trophies don't mean nothing. But each and every one of them carries a memory. And that I can take with me. Each and every one of them has some sort of experience that went along with it. And that's something you can carry with you forever. And if you want to get into God's plane of existence, if you will, then you really kind of have to, separate yourself from this world of nothing but confusion. And God told you it was going to be a world of confusion. There should be no mistake about it. Because, if you practice God's word with the King James 1636 version of the Bible to start with, and if you practice God's word with a Dr. Bollinger's Companion Bible to help you get through it, because there are things in the Bible that are mistranslated. They say that right in the beginning of the 1636 version of the Bible. It says, we did the best we could. We made mistakes. Please don't take our word for it. Check us out. It says that right in the prefix of the 1336 Bible. And I'll give you a real good example of where they've messed up in the Bible on many occasions. They use the word fear. Well, in the Bible, that word fear goes back to the Hebrew. And it doesn't mean fear. What it means is revere. So it means to understand, what it is he's all about, and to revere him. It doesn't mean to fear him. It means to revere him. And look, if you live right, if God's good to you because you've been good to God, you've had those opportunities other people would have, but you've turned them down because it's all part of the devil's confusion, And you've tried when sometimes it's kind of hard to try. That's that little baby deer I always like to show. That little baby deer. You can see that full-grown raccoon is almost as big as that deer, if not as big. Its mama got hit by a car while she was giving birth. I tell that every time I get on. And she was dead, But I got to her real quick, and I thought I could. She was half out. That baby was half out of her mama. I thought I could snatch her out, and I wiped the slime away from its mouth. I had a towel with me. I tried to blow in its mouth and do what I thought maybe were little chest compressions. As you can see, I wasn't successful, but that's a very unusual amount on account of the fact that it's literally on the day that deer was being born. I wrapped it up in a towel after I found out I couldn't save it, and I took it to the taxidermy. But I want people to know that, to love God is fine. And everybody, a lot of people go into these churches, and half of them don't even know what the true word of God is. Because honestly, the true word of God, it comes from studying. It doesn't come from that feel-good thing that they do when you first walk into a church and they just want to save your soul. They just want you to get excited about God. That's like feeding somebody the baby food. You get a little, like your little baby, and it's all just something to give you that you can digest. And God's word is so full of, it's just so full of every chapter, every verse is so full of unbelievable knowledge. When people say they don't believe in God, I have something to say about that. And frankly, I can ace a Mensa test. I don't know if people know what that means or what it doesn't mean. But what it means is I'm pretty good at just being able to logically get through anything. Analytical, logical stuff, And let me tell you something. There's not a man alive that could have written the Bible. I'm being straight up serious with you right now. There is no group of men that could have written the Bible. The Bible is so interwoven and intertwined and interconnected. And we're talking a book from thousands of years ago. So how can people possibly not get that? You can read every kind of interesting book there is written today. You can read everything from that heathen Stephen King to some of the most intricate scientific stuff of the day, which I really like myself. I like that kind of stuff. But it's not gonna teach you what you need to know about God. I'm gonna teach you something you need to know about God right now. If you watched Morgan Freeman's Through the Wormhole, you're probably already halfway there. You already understand a few of these things that I'm going to say to you. So it's going to help you a little bit as I go on and preach. I know I'm not preaching in an orthodox method or fashion. I'm not going to give you chapter by chapter and verse by verse, other than to say that every chapter is a subject, and every verse in that chapter pertains to that subject. And if you go through it the way you should, then any child can figure it out. And here's another one that kind of throws people off, because they got so many preachers telling, oh, don't worry about Revelations, that doesn't matter. Well, let me tell you something. Daniel and Ezekiel go in hand with Revelations. And what does revelation mean? It means to reveal. So that's one for the watchman. And quite honestly, you got to be one of God's elect to even get there. And that's why a lot of preachers tell you don't even bother with it, because most people that even go to a church are just babies getting fed baby food. And that's why you see a lot of them show up on what they call Easter Sunday. Well, Easter's a pagan goddess. Rolling of eggs, quick like a bunny, fertility rites. The true Passover is 14 days after the spring equinox, and that's the Passover. That's when Jesus did his thing. He split the temple from top to bottom, and it shook the whole land of Jerusalem. And you can't fake. People say, oh, it's just a fairy tale and this and that and the other, and well, yeah, okay. But the true Jews, we're not talking about the Zionists now. Those are different. That's a whole different ballgame. And we're not talking about the Catholic priests either, because they break the first commandment right off the bat. It says, do not put any God before me, and then they go tell you to say Hail Marys. Mary wasn't God. Jesus was God. You see? So, and both of them, it seems like they're right there with Baal, They want to, I don't even like to say it, because it turns people away from the real thing, And I don't want to do that. So I'm going to kind of keep my mouth shut. But you know what Baal worship was? They offered up their offspring. That's what Baal worship was. It's like abortions today. They're offering up their offspring. And so, you can think how you want about it. Everybody has their own place in the whole grand scheme of things. We all have our position, We either get to a certain position or we don't, People say that Stephen Hawking didn't believe in God because after he died, there was something written on his computer that said he didn't believe in God. See, the devil's he's he's the man of confusion, man. He is the perfect shining light. He is the perfect order, right? But he rebelled. He rebelled against God. And that's why he is so good at deceiving people, because he knows the Bible. It clearly says in Revelations, if he was given the full time that he was going to have, if God didn't come and cut his time short, he would even have God's elect. That's how good he is at deceiving. So, hey, this is just a few pearls of wisdom, stuff I've learned over the years, reading and studying the Bible. I've studied the Bible ever since, I'm wanting to say 1994, 95. Partly because I was living the wrong life. I was never raised in a church, so I didn't know anything about religion. I basically was told by my agnostic dad, seek and you'll find. And I kind of ignored that for a long time, like a lot of young people do. It's normal. And you get yourself in trouble and you do things that you shouldn't do and that sort of thing. I've never gone to jail for more than a DUI or something, which I even beat that because I really wasn't drunk. I was just one of those circumstances. I was trying to tell a cop that I had testified against a dirty police officer that had murdered somebody, and he kept trying to take control of the situation, and I was asking for a supervisor because I was kind of scared. And as it turns out, he was wrong, and I heard that had he thought that I was being truthful, the tape would have never made it to the courtroom because they take a magnet against it and get rid of it. That's what my lawyer told me. He said that because he was so sure I was full of crap and I was just telling him a wild story, that's why the tape made it to the courtroom. And it's funny to me because I really did. And that's when I think I was seeking out something besides just me and life, because I knew what I knew, and I didn't have to come forward. I asked a lot of my friends, hey, should I come forward? Should I tell the truth about what I know? Oh no, a dirty cop? No, you don't want to do that. You don't want to come forward. Oh my God, you put yourself in jeopardy doing that. And I lived on a corner. When they arrested him, he had an M16 fully auto with the number shaved off of it in the back of the squad car. So I knew, he's got friends. He's not doing this all by himself. And there's other people in the department. And I went to a lawyer just to talk to a lawyer about it. Can I come forward without giving my name up and telling them, what I know without being involved? No, Kenny, you can't do that. He said, but your being here is client privilege, so you can walk out that door and never say a word to anybody, and as long as you stay quiet about it, nobody's going to know, and I can't tell anybody because it's against the law for me to tell anybody. And then he went on to tell me, that precinct he worked out of? Yeah. Well, there was 127 officers in that precinct, and about 68 of them were relocated because of the in-house investigation they did on that precinct. So what he was telling me was there was a lot of crooked cops out of that precinct that he worked out of. And so I took that into consideration, and I asked all my friends, and all my friends said, no, don't get involved. But it was blacked out in the county that I lived in because that's where it happened. The only thing they didn't black out was when they put it on the news to see if anybody had, and I didn't see that, it's just something I heard of after the fact. They put it on the news to see if anybody had heard or seen anything at the location where the lady was murdered for $7,000. She had received a $15,000 inheritance, and half of it had got stolen, and she still had $7,000 cash. And so she got her money from a certain bank on a certain morning, and it was all brand new $100 bills. So there was a sequence of $100 bills, and So if they had found any of that money in that sequence, then they could have perhaps, you know, either caught the person that did it, or what have you. So she was excited about that concept. Well, Mike Chappell, the man who was on duty, went to her house. He didn't tell her about that, just to tell her about that. He told her about that because he was trying to set her up right from day one. This is back when you could click over on the phone, and you could be talking to a friend, and you could click over and click back to your friend, you know. Well, she was talking to a friend on the phone when he called her. And he said, Miss Thompson, we think we found your money. If you meet me up the road here, we can compare serial numbers, and you might even get your money back. Of course, she was very excited, you know. $15,000, half of it was missing. She got all excited about oh, you remember that nice cop that came over the other day? She tells her girlfriend, oh, that nice police officer? Well, he thinks he found my money. I'm going up right now to compare serial numbers. Maybe I'll get my money back. Well, then she goes up the road, and she parks in it's like a body shop after hours, you know, but it's right off a pretty prominent main road. And I'm sure he thought about getting her off somewhere a little more secluded, but that might seem a little too fishy, you know. So anyway, he gets her in the backside of this body shop down alongside of it, and she parks waiting on him, what have you. And he comes up. It's raining like hell outside, so he's got his rain jacket on. He's a real big guy, stands about 6'4", just huge. He owns a gym, and I heard through the grapevine that he was running all the drugs and guns and everything else, steroids, you name it. He was involved with all kinds of stuff. I heard all that through the grapevine because of the kind of stuff I was doing at the time. But anyway, he shot her in the head twice, and he took her $7,000 that she had left and left her there. And the reason they even had any idea that it was him was because somebody that was a couple of miles down the road heard the gunshots. And it was right between, you have to excuse me, I got to get up and move around all the time because of my bad back, bad knees, bad hip and all that. But anyway, he moved. That's me moving. Anyway, they heard the gunshots, and they knew exactly because they were changing the channel from one show that they watched regularly to another show that they watched regularly. So they knew exactly what time of night the gunshots had gone off. And so they put it, this is what I'm saying, the only time they put anything about it on the TV or the radio was when they were asking people for information. Has anybody seen anybody at this particular location at this particular time? Other than that, they sequestered it, blacked it out the whole bit, you know. They didn't want any kind of interference with anything. Anyway, so what happened was there was about 4 witnesses. 3 of them saw a great big cop in a rain jacket, and all they could say is it was a Gwinnett County trooper, policeman, and they could say what kind of car it was. You know, they have a very distinct look to them. And then there was one guy who actually went up the road and stopped at the light right as Mike Chappell was pulling out. And Mike Chappell stopped at the light right next to him. And the guy sat in his car, and he looked over at Mike Chappell, and he noticed that Mike Chappell was eyeballing the crap out of him. Made him a little nervous because it's a cop, you know. He's, what's he eyeballing me for, you know? But he got a really good look at him. And so the next day when they were on the news saying, did anybody see anybody at this location at this time? It clicked with those 4 people. And this is why it's important to, you know, when you hear gunshots go off, don't hide. Go to the window, look out the window, see if there's somebody you can maybe identify later on. We all have to live. You know, you got to have God in your heart. You got to be brave enough to have God in your heart, to know no matter what happens, God's got your back. Even if you get killed, you know, if you did it in the name of God, He's got your back. He's going to take care of you. I mean, these people are scared to even be involved in the big cities. And because of that, they do some crazy stuff, like they have to put gunshot detectors around the city that triangulate and GPS locate where the gunshot took place. And sometimes the cops will show up and there's a dead body, and sometimes they'll show up and there's somebody who's alive that can actually identify the guy that shot him. And sometimes they show up and there's just shell casings on the ground, and they can pick them up into evidence. And because there's a little striker mark on the back of that shell casing that matches like a fingerprint, you know, later on they have a murder, and oh look, we got a match to this striker mark, and we got some shells that have fingerprints because they were just horsing around when they were shooting their gun that day. So now they got someone they can go talk to about, well, who is it that has this gun, and why were you out shooting this gun that day? Why are your fingerprints on these shell casings? You see what I'm saying? But they shouldn't have to go through all that. We as human beings should be, you know, this whole thing about hating the police and scared of the police and all of this kind of stuff. It's just absurd, man. It's absurd. And you're talking to somebody who testified against the police who murdered somebody. Okay? If I can do it, you can do it. We all have to live in the environment that we create. So whatever that environment is, you created it. You want to live in a place where people go around cutting each other's heads off? Or do you want to live in a place where, you know what, everybody stands up for the law? And they stand up for the law for a reason. And no, they don't go out and just lynch somebody off a tree, because that's not right either. Someone's innocent until they're proven guilty. But they give them a chance in a court of law to find out if they are guilty or not. And if they are, they do something about it. They take care of it. We got real issues right now with equal under the law, because we've got some really nefarious politicians. Now, how the heck do they expect us to be the kind of people we need to be when they can't even be the kind of people they should be? You see? It just, you know, you get this many people in the world, you're always going to have somebody who, you know, wants to take advantage of somebody else and that sort of thing. It's just human nature. It's part of it, you know. But God didn't make wimps. God didn't make pushovers. God made people to stand up for what's right. That's the truth of it. That's when I started finding God, when I had to stand up for what was right. When I had to take my 30-30 to a job, you know, had a gun permit, and take my 30-30 to a job and tell my guys on the ground while I'm climbing a tree, hey, if I start getting shot at up in that tree, I'm going to get around on the back side of the tree where I can block them bullets from getting to me. You guys need to come tie this gun on a rope and send it up to me. If I yell my gun and I yell it loud, I want you to tie this gun onto that rope where I can bring it up and defend myself. I shouldn't have to do that. Nobody should have to do that. But I was receiving death threats. And, you know, all they had to offer was the Federal Witness Protection Program. I'd already been divorced. So my wife had primary custody. I only got my kids in the summer and every other weekend, you know, holidays and what have you. If you go in the Federal Witness Protection Program, guess what? You can't have contact with any of your family. None of them. Brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, kids, none of them. So I had to man up. I did what I had to do. And it was a scary time, because I got death threats. I found a dead rat on my grill. They were trying to tell me, see, the information I had about I did business with his wife about 3 days after the murder, and I saw an envelope about a half-inch thick, $100 bill. So I saw the murder money. And it was important because they hadn't discovered the gun. He got rid of that good somehow or another. And I'm guessing it's real deep in the bottom of Lake Lanier, but that's just me. But the money hadn't been recovered either. Later on, after I came forward and told them what I had seen, they were going through some of his paper, you know, his ticket book, what he wrote tickets with and stuff. And there was like a little hidden compartment in the back of his ticket book, and it had a couple of $100 bills. And they could say that those $100 bills definitely came from the bank where Miss Emma Jean Thompson got her money that morning. But they couldn't say for sure that it was her money. They could just say, well, yeah, we had new $100 bills came out of the bank, and these two that you have here came from that bank that morning. But it's not the same as, it's not the same as, well, we definitely know these are in the sequence that we gave to her. So anyway, I think I've gone on for a while now. It's been about 30 minutes. And I'm just trying to tell people, hey, don't be scared to help out the police. This whole Black Lives Matter crap, we all know by now. I mean, y'all go listen to Candace Owens. Look at the statistics in the World Almanac. The World Almanac has every kind of statistic you can imagine in it. It's one of the greatest sources in the world for statistical information that's unjaded. It's not like these polls where they're polling 90% Democrats so they can get the result they want. It's real statistics. Go to get it. Look, it's online, cheap app. While you're there, I want you to do something while you're there, and this will get me booted big time. If I say this, you probably won't even see this post because of what I've said. But our founding forefathers were very specific about treason. And the reason they were so specific about treason was because of the old English oligarchs and the abuses that they used. In other words, they would say somebody was treasonous and they'd have them strung from a tree the very minute they said it. And because of that, our founding forefathers were really smart. They were like, no, we're going to make it where treason, not only is it hard to commit, it's almost impossible to commit treason, the way they've written it up. That's why when people throw that around, treason, it's just like right now. They know that Robert Mueller, right? They know that whole thing was just a big farce, right? And there's people out there saying, well, that was treasonous because they went against Trump. And they tried to take down a sitting president. No, people, it wasn't treason. You want to know the true definition of treason? First of all, you have to have an act of war. We have two. Ronald Reagan, and it used to be it had to be done by the Congress, okay? And so the declaration of war used to have to come from Congress until, I think, Pearl Harbor. And then they decided, well, an act of war can be declared by the president because it's important that it be declared fast sometimes. And the way they back that up is if it's declared, if there's an act of war declared by the executive branch, and then Congress appropriates money for the act of war, then that makes it legitimate. So basically, if the executive branch says, okay, we're declaring an act of war, and then Congress comes around and appropriates the money needed for that act of war, then the act of war is legitimate. All right, so you got that so far, okay. Well then, we have, right now we're currently under two acts of war. One act of war is the war on drugs. That was declared by Reagan, and it was appropriated with $470 billion by Congress, and climbing, because they still are putting money into the act of war against drugs. Which I think the reason they don't charge people with treason over that is because in order for treason to be charged, you have to inhibit the ability of America to defend itself. Now, what have they done trying to take out President Trump that inhibited America's ability to try to defend itself? I would argue, hey, he was stopping all these Muslims from coming into the country, so maybe they did do that, But it would be a hard sell, we'll put it that way. But at the same time, The second act of war is the act of war on terror, September 14th of 2001. And it came with a specific stipulation. And that stipulation was, you're either with us or against us, quote unquote, G.W. Bush. So we're under two acts of war. One's the war on drugs and the other one's the war on terror. Now, during the 70s, under Jimmy Carter, the Iranians took our embassy employees hostage. They kept them hostage for almost 500 days. Jimmy Carter tried to, because he had intel as to where they were, and he tried to do a rescue attempt. But they messed up because the fine sand over there in the desert, well, it got up into the intakes of the helicopter because they had not retrofitted the helicopters to accommodate that fine sand. And so the whole thing got botched. Well, after that rescue attempt that Jimmy Carter attempted to get botched, they moved the hostages all around in different places and what have you. And so our intel didn't know where they were. It was just the way it was. Well, then Reagan took office, and Reagan did something rather brilliant. The reason Jimmy Carter didn't want to try to negotiate with them is because we don't negotiate with terrorists. What's the war on terror? Terrorists. Okay. But Reagan did something kind of brilliant. He says, okay, he says, I'll negotiate with you. What is it you want? And they told him they wanted a shipment of arms. And they wanted maybe some future shipments of arms. And so Reagan says, okay. And he went through Oliver North's office. He kept this all covert to the American people because he knew the American people would go bonkers if they knew we were negotiating with terrorists. They just wouldn't like it at all. So he kept it covert. Of course, we found out about that with the Iran-Contra scandal. Okay. What was Oliver North and his secretary doing? They were shredding the documents of the arms deal. But anyway, he did something that was really quite brilliant. And what he did was he went ahead and sent them the arms. At the same time, he was telling the State Department to tell everybody that's American that they could find, anybody they could find in Iran that was American, to get out. Get out of Iran, get out now. Get out while the getting's good, because it's not going to be pretty. You need to get out now. And of course, the State Department was also telling people here in America, you know, engineers and those kind of people, look, I don't care how much they offer you to go over there and work on a building or build a dam or whatever. Don't go. Just do not go. That's why even to this day, you should always listen to the State Department. They will tell you if it's safe to go somewhere. You think you're going on some beautiful vacation and they made it sound so wonderful and all, you better ask the State Department before you go. Just saying. I'm just a little truth teller over here. I'm going to tell you how it is. You know, if the State Department tells you don't go there, don't go there. Period. There's a reason they're telling you not to go there. You might end up in the Peruvian mountains waiting for some family member to come up with some ungodly amount of money they can't come up with. I would hate to be chained to a tree for months on end because my family couldn't come up with the money to come get me. I'm just saying, it's not funny, but, you know, hey, if you're dumb enough to go somewhere the State Department told you not to go, you might just get what you deserve. So anyway, look, they told, this is where Reagan was brilliant. He told everybody, don't go. You know, he told everybody, get out. He gave them their shipment of arms that they wanted, right? He gave it to them. And then he froze their assets. In other words, he made them pay for that shipment. Now, I want you to compare it to something. Say I'm a hostage taker, whatever. And I got your kid, and I've got a knife to his throat, or her throat. And I got a piece of paper, and I'm telling you, sign the paper. Sign the paper, old man. Oh, chicken tongue in there. Anyway, sign the paper. And of course, I've got a knife to your child's throat. What are you going to do? You're going to sign the paper, right? Okay, I'll sign anything. Just don't hurt my child. Is that contract legitimate? Well, neither was the contract made with other Iranians. And then you got these idiots. Okay, Iranians took even more hostages under Reagan. And then they're the state sponsor of CAIR and ISIL and ISIS and Hamas and Hezbollah. They're the state sponsor of all these other terrorist organizations. And you got these idiots saying, when Obama took that $1.7 billion, it started with $300 million in cash. It was their money. It wasn't our money. It was their money because it had been frozen assets. No, it wasn't their money. You get it? Did you just hear the story I just told? Did it not clue you in that it didn't belong to them to start with? Talk about a contract under duress. I mean, come on, people. Wake up. Wake up. We have an enemy. It's been a 1,400-year-old enemy. And now you're electing them into Congress? You're electing them into our government? In 1,400 years. Name one time where Muslims and Christians were able to get along. I can name one. Assad in Syria. He had an 1,800-year-old Christian church in his country. You know what happened to it? ISIS bombed it. Killed the parents fleeing the church. Didn't bother shooting at the kids. What did they do with the kids? They went over there and beheaded the children in front of each other. Siblings beheaded in front of each other to save bullets, quote unquote. That's about the same time Obama went to the EU to create a constitution overriding mandate. Why do I say constitution overriding? Because we're supposed to have free speech and free press. But when they seen in Libya, when they seen the Muslims kicking over the gravestones, right? Oh no, we can't have them. Oh, geez, showing these beheadings and stuff that they're showing on the internet. And it was kind of getting to be an everyday thing where you could get on the internet and see somebody get beheaded or something, right? So Obama goes to the EU and he says, look, we got to make this mandate. All Muslim crimes need to be deemed Islamophobia. Now let me ask you a question, right? Because you may agree with that or disagree with that. What if Hitler had a similar mandate deeming all of his crimes against humanity Naziphobia? Would that have been okay with you? See, we're not talking about your average Muslim here. Now, look, people, there's lots of Muslims that are true, just want to live a peaceful life. They're educated. They're smart enough to know that all of that stuff is radicalized bullshit. Excuse my language. And they just want to live a peaceful life. So we're not talking about those people. We're talking about the radicalized kind. The only problem with that is, look up Claire, C-L-A-R-E, no I in there, Lopez, ex-CIA on YouTube. And get you some reading material, the Quran translated into English. That way you can at least know what you're up against. Compare that to your Bible. 7 times 70, forgive them. Pray for your enemy. It doesn't mean you're a pushover though. It doesn't mean you're supposed to allow them to come in and just take over your way of life. There's a difference, see. And until you understand what they're all about, you're not going to understand this difference that I'm talking about. And I hate it for people that don't understand it. I mean, it's sad to me because it's just a little bit of education. It doesn't take that much time and effort to read the Quran. And people still think that Obama was Christian? Really? Why? Because he went to Eric Robert Wright's church? Is that why you think he's Christian? Well, let me tell you something. This is really going to blow your mind. If he had switched from being a Muslim to being a Christian, guess what his penalty would have been? That's right, death. That's in the Quran. It's not me. I'm quoting the Quran. But if he is a jihadist and he pretends to be a Christian, he's okay. What does that tell you, people? Wake up. Wake up. You're not a pushover. You know, you're not supposed to have your daughters getting married at 9 years old. You're not supposed to be in a society where women are treated like dirt. A girl drinks a beer and she's raped by 27 Muslim guys who are in the government. They're actually police officers. And then she's whipped with canes until she can't even lay on her back for a month. That's the Muslim religion. And believe me, they play by it. That's what they do. You can't be angry about them, though. You pray for them. You know, you do what you can to try to show them the light. Teach them that there's love, man. Love's better than that. Love would never allow that. How can you say your God wants you to do that? 27 guys, one after another, raping a girl just because she had a beer? That's your God? No, see, my God teaches me that everybody's a sinner. And to try to persuade them not to be a sinner anymore. To come into the fold. To come into the light. To come into the love. I love y'all. And I know there's people out there that, you know, they need to hear it. They need to hear it. Some of them never even seen love. I have a friend that works with kids that acted out sexually. And he likes to think that they have a really good non-recidivity program. But some of these kids never even had a chance from day one. And I'm telling you right now, if you never have had the true word of God taught to you, chapter by chapter and verse by verse, with a Dr. Strong's Concordance and a Bollinger Companion Bible, you don't even know the true word of God. You don't. It's almost like it's been hidden. Because there's so many, the devil is so good at deceiving. He deceives everybody. He's deceiver. He's the deceiver. Why am I alive after 35 years of doing tree work when somebody died every single year doing what I did for a living, climbing trees? Why? Why am I alive when I testified against a police officer who murdered somebody, who had an M16 with the number shaved off of it, fully auto in the back of his squad car? Why? Why? See, God knew where I was going, even when I didn't. He knew I'd be right here telling y'all there's a better way. You can believe in him. He loves you, man. He's your father. There is no shame in his game. I'm going to have to cut it short sometime. But before I do, I want to say the things I wanted to say about treason, because I got about halfway through that and I want to finish it up. I know I got about 10 minutes left and they might allow me an hour. I don't know. We'll see. Alright, so we know we had two acts of war. The war on drugs and the war on terror. We know that that Iran was definitely the enemy. Right? You want to deem an enemy. Who took hostages? Who took more hostages under Reagan? Who took more hostages under Jimmy Carter? All the presidents. Underneath all of them. Okay? Who's the state sponsor of all these terrorist organizations? Okay? If that's not the definition of the war on terror, I'd like to know what is. Okay, now we know Obama, who's really Muslim, I don't blame him. He was a good Muslim. I mean, I just say it like it is. He's a good Muslim. He is. He did his job as a Muslim. He brought America down just as far as he could bring us down. He liked to crush us. He almost did. Had Hillary got in with her greedy ways, we would have been crushed. See, the two-class oligarch systems, that's what they want. I'll give you an example real quick. Two-class oligarchs. China. If you miss 5 minutes late or you don't make quota, you lose your whole month's pay. Religion is forbidden because decent, righteous people like Martin Luther King can organize to effect change. If you're sick and you don't have family to take care of you, you're in deep doo-doo. Meanwhile, they tell you how many children you can have. And forget about protests. They'll just run you over with their tanks. That's the ultimate two-class system. Now, India has a two-class system too, and they're not quite as bad, but they're... And meanwhile, we're talking about India, okay, while Hillary Clinton was State Department, they were shipping Indian people over here left and right. Probably most of them Muslim, because that's Obama's deal, say. And they were giving the Americans their walking papers. And they're telling their Americans, oh, well, you can't get your severance package unless you train your foreign replacement. Who's going to work for half of what you work for? Why do they want a two-class system? Why is Hillary over wearing Indian garb in India telling Indian people, oh, Americans are just jealous of you because they know that you can do better in America than they can? Quote unquote. Why do they want a two-class system? Because this thing right here, it's called the information age. They're scared to death of it now. And they should be. Because all those things they were able to keep in the shadows for all those years, now they're all becoming out. Everything that was in the shadows is getting light shined on it because of this information age. Okay, now let's finish up the treason. The worst thing that Obama did, besides take the $1.7 billion to a known enemy, during that same deal, the Iranian deal, he stopped our DEA from a bust that they had been working on for years and years and years. But they were getting ready to bust the Hezbollah terrorists that were dealing drugs in America. Now, this is going to take about the last 7 minutes of this post. Obama stopped our DEA bust called Cassandra. If you want to look it up, you'll be able to find it. They list cocaine and stuff, you know, but that was the reason for that, was that the Hezbollah terrorists were trying to get a foothold somewhere without raising too many eyebrows. Okay. But what their real objective was is, what do they grow over there in Afghanistan? That's right, heroin. Okay. But even worse, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So what's coming from China? It all comes up through Mexico. That's why we need a wall. We need a barrier. We need to do something. We need some very sophisticated equipment and dogs and you name it. And I don't want no mechanical dog where they can program it to go around something that they want to go around one day because they're bringing the stuff in. I don't want that either. I want the real deal. In China, they make fentanyl. They bring it up through Mexico. So the Hezbollah terrorists, they get kids too young to even understand the consequences of their actions, let alone the concept of weaponized drugs, hooked on heroin. Once they get them hooked on heroin, then overnight, snap, just like that. The paramedics say it best. We've never seen anything like it. Kids are dropping like flies. Whole regions of children are dying overnight. That's because they switched from that weak opioid to 100 times stronger fentanyl. One dose will kill 50 grown men. They've tested it. You know, you got a kid with a needle half in his arm. They can take that needle out and test what's in it, and they can tell you one dose of this would have killed 50 men. Why? When you looked up at those World Trade buildings going down, and a lot of people looked up and said, wow, this is a new form of war. Well, what do you think weaponized drugs is? Parents, teach your kids. Teach them. Tell them. Make sure they understand. Make sure they get it. Weaponized drugs. It's real. And it's here. And if they can get you with it, they're going to get you with it. And if you look at where they're distributing it, that's very telling too. And like I said, just look at the World Almanac. All you need to know are these two things. The World Almanac has the statistics that I'm talking about online. Since 2009, there's been 500,000 kids, most too young to even understand the consequences of their actions, let alone the fact that weaponized drugs are dead. 500,000 since 2009. That's only 10 years. Did you know that during the whole Vietnam conflict, soldiers fighting a war, less than 59,000 soldiers died? Less than 59,000. That was soldiers fighting a war. That lasted 11 years. So in other words, 1 year, 80,000 kids, right? That's more people dying in 1 year than 11 years of the Vietnam conflict. It's a new form of war, people. Make sure your kids understand. You know, they're easily swayed by peer pressure and friends and, oh man, you gotta try this. This is great, you know. They have to understand. The only one that's going to teach them that they can trust is you. You're their mama. You're their daddy. You have to teach them. They're using this as a weapon. You think you're doing cocaine. Instead, you just did a shot of fentanyl that would kill 50 grown men. You think you're doing methamphetamine. Instead, you just did a shot of fentanyl that would kill 50 grown men. You think you're using heroin. Instead, you just did a shot of fentanyl that would kill 50 grown men. Wake up. Yeah, I just cussed out America. And I'm cussing out them parents that don't have these conversations with their kids. Please, people, please. God loves you. I love you. I'm not trying to be mean. I love you. I want y'all to know. I want y'all to understand that, look, this 1,400-year-old war is, name one time that it worked out. I just told you. Assad had an 1,800-year-old church. Right? But they weren't equal. They had to wear a little star on their vest so that when a Muslim came down the road, they had to get out of their way and stuff. They had to pay, in order to live, they had to pay extra taxes just so they could exist in that environment. So, do we do that to Muslims? Do we make them pay extra taxes just to live? No, we don't. But do we want them to come over here in droves? Look up Dearborn, Michigan. Hear it from their own words. You can hear stuff over and over and over again. If you look up, put some posts, you'll hear it over and over and over and over again. They don't hide it. They don't try to pretend, unless they're jihadists. And then they'll pretend to be Christian because it's okay to do that. Hey, they can be gay, they can be Christian, they can do anything they want to if they're jihadists. You didn't know that, did you? That's in the Quran. They can do anything you do. As long as they're jihadists, that's okay. I love you. God bless y'all. I want to say a prayer real quick. God, please let this find the ears that needs to hear it, the eyes that need to see it, the people with children that need to know it. Amen. I love y'all. Bye-bye.